Hello everyone. Finally, the wait is over. EDC VIIT is here with an entirely new podcast series where we'll be sharing the most amazing and the phenomenal stories of incredibly brilliant business minds, their key strategies, the lessons they have learned, and the challenges they faced on their journey to success. This podcast series is going to help you understand how these young entrepreneurs solve real problems in their business realms and what made achieving excellence possible for them. So, moving on to our first episode of the series, we have with us Mr. Narayanan S, who used to work in McDonald's at the age of 18 and now is the co-founder of LinkedIn's 2020 Top Startups of the Year, Unschool. From being a college dropout to the chief business officer of Unschool, let's hear some insights on his journey. So, for all the young entrepreneurs out there, grinding and learning every day, or for anyone who just wants to get smarter, this is the episode for you. Enjoy yourselves. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks a lot for that amazing introduction, Ishank. I would probably have been a young entrepreneur 5 years back. I'm slightly older right now, crossed the 25 years mark. Uh, but sounds super surreal when you recite the last 7 years of me working in McDonald's, my first semester of college, and now where I am. It just feels super grateful that I was able to live these experiences very early on in my life. So thanks a lot for the invitation, and let's get started.
Yes, sir. How are things at school, sir?
Okay, that's a very wide and open question. It's going good. We have done some phenomenal work, not just the people on the top level of the management, but across the network over the past 16 to 18 months of Unschool. We've tried to set some excellent benchmarks in terms of the bootstrapped startup that we are. We are a healthy organization of about 100 plus employees today. 2 years back, Rahul and I, my co-founder Rahul Verma, both of us were sitting in his three-bedroom apartment, just preparing to launch the website and trying to find out the launch timeline, the product pricing, the minimum viable product that we'll be launching. So yeah, today where we are right now, I'd say we are in a phase to disrupt the market. So 2021 is going to be a very, very challenging year for us, where we want to sort of, climb out of the lower level of edtech startups who are like super young to sort of join the big league, gang. Say companies like Udemy, Coursera, which are ruling the market right now internationally. So we would want to be there, but so far it's all going good, and yeah, couldn't be grateful to wherever we are right now.
Wonderful, sir. So, could you brief us about your journey from a McDonald's worker to the co-founder of Unschool?
Oh, all right. So see, my stint with McDonald's was just as or how's it to be working in a restaurant. I think not a lot of students who come from a privileged background explore such opportunities, right? So I came from a very, if not a very well settled, a very contemporary family. Didn't have to struggle to meet ends. Got admission into one of the most premium institutes in India back then in 2012. Uh, but I had quite a few hours in my hand through the day. I had I think afternoon to evening classes while I was doing my bachelor's. So I was like, hey, I've got some 6 hours in the morning. What do I do? So I took up, working at McDonald's as one of those go-to opportunities. In fact, one of the funny stories there is when I was sitting for the interview to get that part-time job, that person kept asking me, "Hey, you're doing bachelor's of science, you're doing physics, and you seem to be in a good college. Why do you really want to work with us?" I said, hey, where I come from doesn't matter. What I want to do is what matters. So why don't you just give me that opportunity? And just about 2 to 3 days later, I was flipping burgers at McDonald's. To be very, very precise, this McDonald's outlet in this mall called Ampa Skywalk in Chennai. I worked there for about 6 to 8 weeks, and the only memory I have, or only merchandise that I could pick out from there right now was that McDonald's cap that I had somewhere in my cupboard in the house in Chennai. But otherwise, the overall idea of joining it was to while away my time, and not to sort of pass it with friends, hanging out. What I've learned from it after when I look back at that journey was how does a restaurant chain like McDonald's sort of globally run its operations in a very standard format. I understood how the entire restaurant was split into four parts, whose duty was what every single day was sort of briefed, and everyone did their job like a conveyor belt moving across, and in order to make sure the customers get like the best experience. Um, so yeah, quite a few things that I learned from eating burgers, not as a customer but as an employee there. Was a very, very good experience for me there, and how it turned out to be where I am right now is again a really long story. So I'll wait for your questions for that.
Great, sir. Sir, who or what is an entrepreneur according to you?
All right. Okay. Um, According to me, an entrepreneur is someone who has a set of values that are super embedded in him or her. Someone who's super curious about why things happen the way they happen. If you are curious about that, you tend to create things for communities at large, which serve them to better their life, or to ease a particular task. So curiosity is something that an entrepreneur always has. The second thing that I would say is someone who's super inclined towards being solution oriented, and not someone who's a problem centric person. Problems are there everywhere, and if you are a human being who's super inclined towards providing or finding the solution, right? First finding it and then providing it to the community at large. Uh, that's the person who's an entrepreneur. And the third value that I personally feel that an entrepreneur, has to find out if that person is sort of in the path is being a no bullshit person, right? Someone who is very straightforward with his or her thinking, straightforward with his or her planning. There's nothing twisted, to reach a spot. Yeah, these are the three things that I feel, according to me, defines an entrepreneur. And when I say a no bullshit attitude, uh, as an entrepreneur, you want to grow fast. You want to provide your solution to communities at large in a very, very quick span of time. And these two things constitute to something that a lot of entrepreneurs do not speak about, which is money, right? As an entrepreneur, you want to do what you want to do because you want to, encash as fast as you can. Serving the community is definitely the initial thought process and the intention. But definitely there's always an ROI, a return of investment in terms of whatever you've thought of, right? So when I say no bullshit person, if you are an entrepreneur in the social sector, then money is definitely not something that you seek for. But if you're a for-profit entrepreneur, someone who's selling a product, making money out of it, that is something that you should keep in mind. If you're confused about that, I think you need to recheck if you really want to be an entrepreneur or not. Yeah. So these are the three things I feel defines an entrepreneur according to me, and yeah.
Okay. Sir, everyone has an idol, right? A person you look up to, someone who inspires you, or at the lowest points of your life, or say your hero. So, who is your idol and why?
Okay, this is I think a three-part question for me, even though it's a straightforward one. The first answer, nothing to be super emotional about, but my father would be my go-to person in terms of whatever I've learned, as being an entrepreneur. And I think um, sometimes more than talent and figuring it out, you need to have it in your blood, right?
Hmm.
Any big entrepreneur would probably have had a family member that inspired them, to pick and start up. So my dad was that person. He took up challenges very early on in his life. Was raised in a very small town in Tamil Nadu, but moved to Delhi at a very young age. That's why I was raised in Delhi. Did my schooling there. My dad quit his job, right around the time when I was, I think, 4.5, 5 years old, and he started off his own business, and he ran it for about 14 years. Through the course of me and my sisters, say um, young childhood until we were teenagers. And I think that we all, the four of us, lived a really comfortable life while my dad was a businessman. And the other thing I would like to say, when I take my dad's name, even my mother's contribution wouldn't be sidelined, because the reason I'm in the educational sector is because my mother was a teacher, and she worked in companies like extramarks.com and JP Infotech, which are some of the big names in the K to 12
Hmm.
education sector right now. So she worked with them when they were, just about a year and a half or two old, back in the late 2000s. So yeah, the go-to people would definitely be my parents, because if not for their blood, I probably wouldn't be doing this. Probably would have been pursuing my PhD in physics or something like that. The other set of people that I always looked up to, one of the biggest idols have been Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam.
Hmm.
Always inspired me in terms of what I did in my life early on. Not as an entrepreneur, but definitely the reason why I took up physics. There was a lot of his hand in it. Unfortunately, he's not there with us to share his wisdom. So yeah, these are quite a few people. But then the list goes on and on, Shank, because every single day someone inspires me. Every single day someone motivates me to become a better person. Uh, and the list is sort of never ending. So I wouldn't say there's one single person, but the start comes from these three people that I just named.
Great, sir. Great.
Yeah.
There are countless skills needed to be successful, right? So, but if you were to list them down, what do you feel are the top three skills needed to be a successful entrepreneur?
All right. The top three skills. I mean, the first one that comes to my mind immediately is you need to be a communicator, right? You need to be able to converse with people, and pick up topics, and be able to talk to people in a meaningful manner. That's one of the biggest skills that I feel every young entrepreneur should have, because um, from the time you're starting up, you're trying to convince your parents to let you do that. If you are super young in college, you are convincing someone else to give money to be invested in your company. You're convincing a ideal customer to sort of buy your product. If you're not a communicator, because in the first 1.5 years of your company, uh, as a co-founder, you probably are doing the sales.
Hmm.
You are building the product and you're doing the sales. So, being a communicator is one of the biggest skills that one should possess, according to me. The second skill is something that a lot of entrepreneurs do not share a lot. It's trying to be able to read a lot, right? I don't know if that counts as a skill, but I think it is very important. If you're an entrepreneur, you should be able to take out at least about 90 minutes every day to pick up a book that you want to read. Doesn't matter whether it's a self-help book or an autobiography, or even if it's a fantasy or a fiction, you should be able to read a lot to keep your mind in motion, right? When you stop reading and learning, you're not able to think with different perspectives, right? Your imagination sort of stagnates. And for an entrepreneur who has 7 to 10 years to sort of build a complete business from the scratch, learning and reading is a lot. And for me, someone like me, because I dropped out of college, my learning about businesses and marketing and product and whatnot comes from reading books and gaining a lot of knowledge. So that would be the second skill that I would probably pick for any young entrepreneur. There's so just because we are recording this and we are on the video, I always have like a set of books. I usually prefer self-help books. So I have something called How to Be a Study Ninja. There's a book on how do you capitalize your time to learn more every single day. There's a book called Elephant Catcher by Subito Bakshi. He's one of my biggest influencers in terms of sales and growth. And then, how to be strategic. So you'll find all sort of help books for me to just understand how systems work. And for an entrepreneur, that perspective really adds on, later on in their journey. The third skill would definitely be how you lead people. So your leadership qualities really matter. Yeah. Because the leadership first begins within yourself. So as an entrepreneur, if you're not disciplined, if you just look for motivation every day, this journey just becomes a blatant failure, right?
Yeah.
You need to be very disciplined about the things you do, how much you sleep, where do you, assign your time, for who do you assign your time, and then comes leading a set of people. If you don't have those leadership qualities, showing empathy, understanding where people come from, and giving your time to them in terms of training and onboarding them, the journey doesn't really, become as exciting as you want it to be, right? So these are the top three things, and leadership counts definitely as one of the highlights of it, alongside the other two that I shared. Because this journey is definitely a lonely journey as an entrepreneur sometimes, but most of the work that happens day to day is being done by your colleagues, your employees who believe in the idea of your company. And if you don't lead them well, um, they become super tensed about where the company is headed, right? So top three: be a communicator, always seek for knowledge and learn and read books, and the third one being leadership.
Amazing, sir. What piece of advice would you give to college graduates like me who want to
Mhm.
become entrepreneurs?
Um, See, like I said, there are problems all around us, right? So when I say be super curious about things, like my definition would be an entrepreneur is like a super curious person about everything that happens, not just in the sector or the field that they're working in, but everything that's in and around. So as a young person, uh, just because you are constrained to learning something within the four walls of college, don't stop learning things from the environment itself. Join clubs like, say, the EDC, so you're able to interact with entrepreneurs. You're able to understand how someone becomes what they want to become, and any problem that you face through the course of your college, or right around the time when you're joining college, just try to be uh, open about understanding why certain things happen, right? Just that one thought while you're walking alone with your earphones plugged in, you're like, hey, why does this happen like this? And you find a solution that might help a community in the future, right? So just be very curious is something that I would always advise any graduate. And the second thing is, you need to be breaking stereotypes as an entrepreneur, right? Because your larger goal is to shift the way a certain generation functions, right? If you look at 8 to 10 years back, we did not have WhatsApp. Right now, India has become the largest user of WhatsApp across the world. And initially the solution was probably, hey, how do you connect very quickly over the internet with a friend of yours, say 10 years back? But today, nobody can live without that. I got the Zoom link for this call on WhatsApp. It's a faster way to communicate, right? So what they started it for and what it's become is something that they, probably wouldn't have realized early on. But then through the course of building the company, they wanted to break stereotypes and have people use their services, right? So, don't constrain yourself to conventional beliefs. Uh, uh, is it fine if I speak in a couple of Hindi words? Right?
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yeah, that's sure, right? Yeah, cool. So, don't constrain yourself to conventional beliefs कि हाँ कॉलेज ज्वाइन कर लिया, 4 साल 3 साल पढ़ लिया, उसके बाद डिग्री मिल गई, प्लेसमेंट में बैठ गए, 3 4 लाख का जॉब मिल गया, 1.5 साल काम करेंगे, 2 साल काम करेंगे, एमबीए करेंगे, फिर लाइफ सेटल है, राइट? You can get a job these days if you want to earn 18 20,000, which is what constitutes to say 3 lakh, 3.5 lakh, 2.5 lakh a package. You can get that without a degree also. If you know how to speak a particular language, join a call center, they'll give you 10 15 12,000. You settled right there, right? Work for 5 years, get your shit together, do a course, and that's about it, right? So don't constrain yourself to normal beliefs that wouldn't enhance your life, not just as an entrepreneur but as a student as well, right? So by this I don't mean drop out of college. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. My situations were different. I had to choose what I had to choose, and even when I dropped off college, I finished all my 6 semesters at college. I finished the entire college time because I was still, I'm still very close to how physics, shaped my life and shaped my brain as well. It was just the systems that I was not believing in. Grading and assessments and stuff like that didn't teach me anything at all. So if you want to be successful in your life as an entrepreneur or as someone who works in a company, just try to be an outlier, move out of the crowd, and try to do things in as different manner as possible. Because settling in life uh, as a societal definition would be always how much money you have in your bank, or if you have a car or a house, or if you have a family, if you have kids, right? But for an entrepreneur, those are secondary things for their entire journey. So if you really want to be an entrepreneur, you need to prioritize your vision first than your life itself, right? Because your vision is going to help a million lives in the future. And yeah, like if you help a million people, all that blessing is going to come to you any which way. So you'll be settled if you're 31, 32 as well. So just be an outlier, just stand out of the crowd. I think these are the two things that I would suggest anyone, who want to become an entrepreneur or just successful in their life in general.
Yeah, sir. How has COVID-19 pandemic affected unschool and also the whole edtech industry in India?
All right. It's been an exciting time for us. I don't know whether, fortunately or unfortunately, though, the entire COVID-19 situation has affected everybody across the world. So my empathy to them, it's affected me as well. I've not stepped out of my house. I've been fortunate enough not to catch the virus, even with the limited stepping out of the house within the city of Hyderabad. But the ones who have contracted the virus or have lost jobs, lost their lives, my empathy to them. But the overall industry has definitely boomed. The edtech industry has taken some good form. There have been a lot of investments across various edtech companies over the past 1 year. The K to 12 sector, the skilling space in the edtech ecosystem, or even the postgraduate diploma programs, they have accelerated for some companies more than 5 times or 8 times as well, right? Revenues have gone up. Solutions have changed, right? Because everybody was constrained to their homes. There was certain mind change shift as well that, hey, I can learn at home. I don't really have to go to
Yeah.
the college. I save up a lot of time. I know I can give my exams virtually. I can learn virtually. A professor can clear my doubts anytime. So that has helped the overall education sector itself, not just the educational technology ecosystem. Um, and I think it goes correct with at least Unschool, and also a couple of other edtech companies. Wouldn't want to name them, but a lot of job opportunities within this ecosystem has increased. We used to hire 40 people in a cycle, but now we are hiring 200 people in a cycle. So for us, it's gone up by 5 times. So definitely the edtech space is not just making money for themselves in terms of growing their customer base and the solutions, but also providing an upper hand to people in the economic front by giving them jobs. A lot of companies that laid off people early on in the pandemic, edtech companies are providing them a space to work with them. But it's also affected the edtech space for companies which were having physical products, which means you need to sort of be on the ground in a school or a college to have your solution being deployed. Those companies have definitely taken some sort of a hit at the early stage of the lockdown, but I feel some of them have gotten back on their feet with having technology-based solutions which could be virtually deployed. But overall, it's been a 8 on 10 year for edtech, I would say. A couple of companies have joined the Unicorn, a $1 billion valuation league as well. For Unschool, also, it's been an exciting time for a couple of reasons. One, because we were in conversations with a lot of investors, and we got the chance to have quicker responses, which usually takes about 6 months to even get to the principal investor in a venture capital fund. We were able to get in touch with someone in less than 2 to 3 weeks because nobody was traveling, so they were at home. They
Yeah.
could speak to us. But that was a good opportunity in terms of being a co-founder for Unschool. But otherwise, being listed as one of the top 3 startups by LinkedIn for 2020, we were just having our name in the big leagues like Cred and Upgrad and Unacademy and PSafe. That was like a really, really good boost for people across the Unschool community and the people that work with us. Our sales went up. Our brand sort of diluted in terms of reaching out to more people, right? And people sort of got to know what Unschool is. There was a conversation that started up. What was difficult initially was moving our employees from the office in Hyderabad back to their homes and setting up that culture of working virtually, because we're a fairly young organization, not just in the number of months that we've been operative, but also in terms of the people that work with us. So the average employee age at Unschool is about 21 and a half to 22. Recent graduates who join us, right? And the sales operations executive constitute about 90% of the workforce in the company. So the younger people, as their first job opportunity, working virtually, was definitely a challenge for us to set those things up. But these were people, these were millennials, so they caught up they caught on to the kind of technologies we were using to report and everything. That was super interesting. Um, it was a wavy year because during the lockdown, the first 2 months weren't that great. The middle part was super amazing for us. And then slowly, the later half of the year was something that we had to figure out because exams were happening, semesters were starting or ending, new admissions, and all these things. So, super exciting and challenging time for us. Absolutely. Grateful for what we've got through the overall pandemic, but definitely super sorry for businesses that were not able to sort of survive in this time. And I think as an entrepreneur, the first thing that you sign on is challenges before
Definitely.
a sweet life. So I guess it was a super amazing year for everybody at Unschool.
Amazing, sir. What are your views on edtech, on the future of edtech? Is it
Mhm.
just a small window for something more radical, or it might get out of the industry soon?
See, education is a very pristine ecosystem to be in, right? And the reason why India again is, um, uh, I would, as far as my understanding goes, without keeping the stats in mind, India is like the birthplace of so many edtech startups, right? Across the world as well, there are many startups that are based out of China and the States. But India, as per my last check, we probably have a little over 5,000 edtech startups, functioning right now, whichever level they are at, right? Either at an early stage or at a super growth stage. But the reason why an entrepreneur jumps into an edtech space before making money is to evolve the way someone was learning, right? Curriculums have been outdated, teachers don't have the right tools to update themselves. There is no connection between what the industry wants and what the institutions teach you, right? The reason why certain curriculums or the schooling system is the way it is in India right now is because during the Industrial Revolution, while the British were in India, you needed people and in the engineering side, in the civil side, in the mechanical side to sort of have certain skill sets to be able to fill up those job opportunities, right?
Mhm.
Now the job opportunities are changing. The structure is an old structure, but they're not following the same flow. If you need
Yeah.
data scientists, you might as well have those kind of learnings being given to students in college. If you're looking at Internet of Things, then you might as well have those kind of knowledge being given. Um, so it's definitely not a small window, because even though we'll have a lot of competitors in the future in the edtech space, um, edtech companies sort of work in tandem with each other, because the overall goal is to inspire and educate the larger audience or the larger youth in India, right? So, in terms of vision, even though the corporate and the company vision might differ, every entrepreneur in the edtech space wants to make sure that someone is learning when they buy their product, whether it's cracking a JEE exam or a CAT exam, or even learning physics, chemistry, maths as a school student. They want to teach better. They want to make people learn better, right? So definitely not a small window, because we're trying to change something that's been embedded for decades in the past, and it's going to change. It's going to take at least a couple of more decades to for people to understand that, hey, I don't need to go to college. I can go to college, but that's for a separate growth or learning. And while I'm at home, I can definitely learn from other platforms and enhance my knowledge. So it's a long-term vision for all these companies, long-term toil and challenge for all these companies, right? So that's what my belief is.
Yeah, breaking the stereotypes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what are your thoughts on different edtech startups and how is Unschool different from them?
All right. So, like I said, the education technology sector itself has, um, you know, different branches, right? So you have the early learning startups, which are for any kid who's 3 to 5 or 3 to 8. You have, different startups that provide enhancing tools for these students to sort of build up knowledge very quickly and early on in their life. Then there are the K to 12, the kindergarten to 12th grade players. Then you have the skilling and the undergrad and postgrad based startups. Then you have the examination or entrance exam based startups. Then you have career based startups, which are in the edtech space, then higher education, right? So multiple other branches which are there, right? So we fall in the skilling space.
Okay.
And like, for example, a Byju's falls in the K to 12 space. Also, when they started, they were in the examination space for JEE and CAT. They also launched a couple of years back the early learning app, which was the Byju's Junior
Mhm.
app. An upgrad comes under the working professional and enhance your career sector. So we fall under the 18 to 24 age group of undergrads, skilling up space, reskilling and upskilling space. So our competitors definitely are all these edtech companies, right? Because an 18-year-old kid can also do a postgrad, 21-year-old kid can also do a postgrad at upgrad. If they have an undergraduation, they can probably take up an examination app like an Unacademy, or do micro projects or micro degrees at a Coursera or somewhere else. So competitors are definitely all these companies. Anyone who's in our age group becomes a competitor, definitely. But the reason why we are different from any other edtech company in the reskilling and upskilling space is because we just don't provide learning content. We provide all the aspects of the physical learning that a person gets in college on an online portal, right? So we are more like an experiential learning platform, a community of sorts where both the teaching community and the learning community is interacting, right? Most of the edtech companies in India, especially, are not platform or marketplaces, right? So we are like an Uber for learning, right? So you have drivers that sign up with Uber. We have coaches that sign up with Unschool. You have passengers signing up for Uber. We have learners signing up for Unschool, right? So there's no platform in India which gives that space for both the teaching community and the learning community to come together. It's usually the company creating content and teaching the community at large. But we provide a community where a learner from data science can interact with an instructor or a coach from artificial intelligence, right? And while the learning pattern itself is designed in a way that a student has an objective to achieve, which is an internship, right? So once they sign up with us, learning is not an objective, because you can't, what do I say? You can't sort of validate how much someone has learned just by scoring them on a scale of 0 to 100. Right. Okay. So the objective is definitely reaching an internship, because that becomes a gateway for them to get a better job in the future, right? Yeah. Which is an ultimate goal for any college, right? So when you're joining a college, they say, hey, our placement rates are 80% or 90%, right? So our objective-based learning itself is a unique factor. And how we do that is through providing projects to the learners, involved with pre-recorded video content. There's a lot of learning material for learners, and even the projects are minor and major. So you have 2 projects that you have to do. Then you have live sessions that we guarantee by the instructor, and peer-to-peer live sessions as well, right? So the entire learning process itself is built in a way that it's self-paced as well as a little restrictive in terms of the knowledge we provide them. So they're able to learn faster, and they're able to learn more while they are part of the Unschool community. And a couple of things that definitely make us stand out is we are very affordable. We do not provide courses, anything more than 10, 15,000. We are still in the early thousands. So a student can afford a course at a 1499 or a 3499 if they wish to choose like a professional version of the course. But if a student is just want to explore what they want to learn, they can go ahead with the basic pack of learning, right? We will provide that. And the overall community is made in a way that we just don't capitalize on students who want to learn technology. The platform is built in a way that we have technology management, arts, co-curricular or vocational, anything that a student wants to learn while they are still exploring their competencies within the college ecosystem, right? So that's the idea, and I think that's what sort of defines us and differentiates us.
Amazing. For all the young entrepreneurs out there, sir, which sector do you feel they should be working upon or building up their startup, and why?
Very lovely question, Ishank. Not just for an entrepreneur, but this goes for any job seeker, right? A lot of students, whenever I'm giving sessions, people ask me, what sector do I go to, or do I select a particular job role, right? A portfolio, right? So specialization doesn't really matter if you have an upper hand in knowing the sector in and out, right?
Hmm.
It's like if you know how to drive a car, it's very easier for you to even drive a truck,
Hmm.
right? Because the mechanics is the same, right? The
Yeah.
nomenclature is the same. There's a gearbox, you have a steering wheel, you have a gas pedal brake, and an accelerator, your clutch, brake, and accelerator. But if you're riding a bike, if you specialize in riding a bike, then you need to learn how to drive a car,
Yeah.
right? So imagine bike and driving a car are two different sectors. I wouldn't recommend someone to shift sectors early on in their career, right?
Hmm.
You should be very, very knowledgeable in your own sector. Whichever sector you choose, it's okay, right?
Okay.
Don't sort of restrict yourself with, oh, I want to be a digital marketer and that's what I'm going to do, right? You can be a great digital marketer, but if you're not aware of the sector, you won't be a great digital marketer, right? You will not know how to reach out to the customer in that particular sector, right?
Hmm.
So that would be my first point. But the second thing is, um, look at what has affected you personally, which sector has affected you the most, right? If it's the
Yeah.
education, if it's the transportation sector, if it's the logistics sector, if it's the aviation or the hospitality sector or the food and beverage sector, whatever has affected you the most, whichever you sort of feel inclined towards, jump into it uh, from the shallow side of the pool, not the deep side of the pool, so that you are still able to know how deep you want to go, right?
Okay.
And then you can jump out if that sector doesn't connect with you. If you're still, under the age of 25, 26, you can still jump in and out of sectors to get that experience. Um, and that's what I would suggest any entrepreneur. If you feel like, do you need a job before you become an entrepreneur? Uh, there's always maybe involved with that answer, because I wouldn't have become an entrepreneur if I did not realize early on in my career that I do not like to work for somebody,
Okay.
right? I realized that I was chief of marketing at a startup in Mumbai for about 9 months, and I realized that, hey, my ideas are way better than someone else, and I don't want to be led by someone else when I can run my own business. So these are the things that you sort of realize when you are doing a full-time job or a part-time job, or probably interning. Like, that's something that I would recommend any college-going student. And if you have an idea, I would ask a college student to start working on it while they're in college, right? Because that's sort of, like, you don't have a lot of commitments when you're in college. Your parents are still giving you pocket money. You're probably outside of your hometown. You have some ample amount of time. You don't have curfews to get
Yeah.
back home. You have friends who will help you build your company as well, right?
Hmm.
You can easily sell it to a college community first and see if you have your early customers jumping in or not. So being in college and starting up is definitely a blessing in disguise, right? So these are a couple of things that I would recommend. Anyone who wants to start early on, don't be sector specific. Learn be sector specific, right? I started my career as a business development, in the B2B sector. Then I moved to marketing. Right now I'm doing product. While I was, in the school at the early stage, I was doing B2C sales as well. So then learning legal. So, as an entrepreneur, you need to know everything, any which ways, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to master that particular portfolio, but you need to know every single thing about the, different portfolios that are there. But you need to have 100% knowledge about the sector, right?
Yeah.
So early on, sort of try out every single dish that's out there and figure it out for yourself.
Sure, sir. So, what will be your concluding message for the audience, sir?
What would be?
Concluding message for the audience.
Oh, my concluding message for all of you is, if you're a college going student and listening to this, there's no right way to live life. Almost everything that you hear is through experiences of people, right? So just like how you read a book and forget about it, and just pick out things that really connect with you. All this chaos about do this, ye galat hai, ye sahi hai. Just pick out things that really connect with you and not listen to every single advice that you get from somebody, and define how you want to live your own life. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you want to get married in 26 or 21. If you really want to do it, do that. It doesn't matter if you want to quit your job when you're 26 and travel for a year. Do that if you want to do that. So define your own life. Don't rely on someone else's experience. Create your own. Yeah. At least in India, that's one of the biggest problems that students have. Parental pressure. There's peer pressure. There's pressure from college. So you end up doing certain things, and your mind stops learning new things, right? Because you keep doing the same things again and again, and you're not sort of jumping out of your habits and rituals, right? So sort of you know explore things while you're young. That would
Yeah.
be my final sort of thought and advice to anybody who's listening to this. Explore going out with friends, explore not going out with friends, traveling across the country, probably doing volunteering work while you're in college, even if it's for a month or two. All these things add up, not for a better job or to build a better company for the future, but to even become a better human being, right? A lot of people do
Yeah.
not focus on that. uh, you know uh, there are certain things I still like, as being a 27-year-old person. Uh, I still love carrying colored pens, and that's what defines me. It's not a black or a blue pen that I carry with myself, or I still have stuffed toys in my room. I still read comics. I still listen to EDM, and that's what defines me, right? It's not that young person should all enjoy this. You're defining yourself as a human being, and that all comes from exploration and experiencing different things early on in your life. That's my last advice and piece of statement. And yeah.
Great, sir. It was lovely talking to you. I would like to thank you, sir, for your time and the surplus amount of knowledge that you have showered us with. So, yeah,
There's a lot for me to learn. I don't think so I'm showering you guys with anything, but super glad that I could take out time for you guys. And thanks a lot to Ajinkya for the invitation. Uh, you know, uh, I love to stay in connection with everybody who interacts with me through my life. So Ajinkya was an intern with us in the marketing and the content writing department, and I think it's super grateful for me that he reached out to me after 3-4 months of finishing his internship for this, and always lovely to interact with young minds like you. So thanks a lot, Ishan, for your time as well.
thank you, sir.
All right, perfect, lovely. Have a great day ahead.
I would like to thank you, sir, for the surplus amount of knowledge that you showered us with. Thanks to our listeners to be with us till the end. I am sure that you have gained a lot of learnings from this podcast. EDC VIT will be back with more such episodes with more such interesting people. But till then, keep working, keep hustling. Thank you.